Hey guys, welcome back to WrestleCast episode 5. And today I have an awesome guest. I'm here with James Alexander. How are you doing this morning?
I'm doing fantastic. Yourself?
I'm doing really good. I'm excited for this interview. Funny story, the first time I saw you, I was tuning in on 205 Live.
Okay.
And I remember you because I had looked a couple times on the Pure Pro Wrestling website just because I was interested in going there, but I was like, I don't know, maybe I'm gonna wait. But I wanted to get familiar with the people there.
Sure.
And when I saw you on TV, I was like, wait a second, time out. I saw him on the website not too long ago. And then I ended up going to Concrete Jungle, the Pure Pro Wrestling show, and then I saw you perform. And actually, at that show, I had a friend of mine go up and he started flexing at you in the ring, and you guys had a mini flex off. And I remember I have it on video, and he said that was one of the funniest moments he had going to a wrestling show.
That's awesome. Who did I wrestle that night?
I think it was a triple threat against? Oh wait, no, that was New Year's Bash. I don't remember if you wrestled that night.
Okay.
I just remember you were in the ring selling T-shirts. That Stone Rockwell was at the show.
Okay.
Yeah, that was the first time I saw you in person, but I just never saying anything. But it's really cool to be able to sit down and talk with you.
Right on, yeah.
But I wanted to start with some accomplishments that I did a little bit of research.
Okay.
And I wanted to just read some. And some of these, I hope all of these are correct, or I didn't miss any. But this is what I could gather.
They're on the internet. They're on the internet, so it must be true.
Yeah, exactly. So here we go. I have NWA Florida Underground Wrestling Champ, FUW Flash Championship 2 times. FUW Tag Team Championship with JD Maverick.
Yep.
And then I have Extreme Intense Championship Wrestling Champion, I believe.
Yeah, it would have been like cruiserweight champion or light heavyweight champion, wherever they called the belt back then. But yeah.
Oh yeah, because right here I have XICW light heavyweight championship.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then Pure Pro Wrestling Michigan Cruiserweight Champion.
Yep.
And then Pure Pro Wrestling Continental Champion.
I might have been. I don't remember if I was the Continental Champion. I might have been if I was, it was briefly. I remember I'm technically still the Cruiserweight Champion for over a year and counting or whatever, right?
Oh yeah.
Pandemic days count.
Oh yeah, definitely.
But sure.
So I wanted to talk to you about your debut, and it said right here I got that you debuted in September 2001.
That is technically, I wouldn't say debuted, but that's when I started my pro wrestling training. I started wrestling training the Wednesday, the week after 9/11. So that'd be 8 days later. So September 19th, 2001 was the day I first walked into Dan the Beast Severn's pro wrestling school. And I was 135 pounds, smoking or dripping wet, right? Soaking wet. And the alpha male Monty Brown was one of the people there that was helping out training.
Yeah.
And so was Jack Thriller, and that was when I first started my pro wrestling training. And the only thing I remember about that day was Monty Brown put me in a headlock, and I pretty much felt like my head disappeared. and if you don't remember the alpha male Monty Brown on TNA and then WWE as Marcus Corvan.
Yeah.
And he's a big and he's a great guy too. Absolutely fantastic guy. But yeah, that's what I remember about that first day.
Awesome. So when it comes to pro wrestling, was that always your career goal, or did you have something else in mind?
Well, I think my first career goal in the 5th grade was I wanted to be a comic book artist or comic book writer.
Yeah.
because I'm, huge comic nerd, and I still am. I've collected. I started collecting physical comic books in like '92 or whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
And now that I have like 4 kids and I can't afford physical comic books anymore, I just read them online with the apps and whatnot, with like Marvel app and whatnot. But I legitimately have like 3,000 comic books in my basement. Wow. But once I don't know, when I was a little kid, my parents wouldn't let me watch wrestling because whenever I did, me and my brothers would wrestle in the living room, and they thought we'd get hurt. So they wouldn't let us watch. It wasn't until I became a teenager and I had a TV in my own bedroom that I started watching wrestling again during the Monday Night Wars in 1998.
Yeah.
And instantly fell in love all over again, and started watching it. And then me and my buddies were really into it, so we started renting all the VHS tapes from the local video store, 2 extinct things, right? And we would hook up 2 VCRs together so that we could record all the classic pay-per-views. And so like I went back and I watched all the stuff from the 90s. So I became a huge fan of like Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels and Mr. Perfect Kurt Hennig and the British Bulldog and Owen Hart. And, those classic 90s era Intercontinental Championship era matches like were absolutely my favorite. And the local video store didn't have much WCW, so I didn't really watch as much of that. Though with the WWE Network, I've gone back and watched more 90s era WCW, and like Stunning Steve Austin before he was Stone Cold when he was in WCW. Become a huge fan of work since then. But yeah, I love that mid 90s era wrestling is some of my favorite stuff to watch.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I kind of went on a tangent. What was the original question?
No, it's good. So when your time on the Independence, do you have a favorite like memory or match or something that happened on the Independence that really sticks out to you?
I've been on so long. I have several favorites and several I'm sure I've forgotten. One of my favorite memories happened behind the scenes. It happened. I was carpooling to Chicago, probably. I think it was Chicago, long time ago, with Jeff Brooks and the Scarboni brothers and wrestler named J.J. Carson and Joe. J.J. Carson, a.k.a. Joe, he unfortunately died a few years back, which makes this story a little sadder because it was a rib on him, and Joe was one of those guys that he was a rib because he'd always sell the rib, and so and he was just spoken at, and he took it all in stride, right? Like none of it was mean spirited for the most part, right?
Yeah.
And so we ribbed him because we were at a rest stop and he was running his mouth about truck drivers and stuff at rest stops, and you don't want to be caught alone with a truck driver at a restaurant for silly reasons. And so we all we did the stupid game where he was last to get in the car. So actually no, we actually drove around to the other side of the building so he couldn't find us at first.
Yeah.
And it was like 2 in the morning or something. Like we're on our long drive home from Chicago. We wrestled probably on the AEW, Danny Daniels promotion out there, and I don't remember if we actually wrestled that night or not, but we had gone there, and I'm sure some of us had worked the match. But yeah, so we did the stupid start when he finally found our car. We did the thing where we start to drive and we stop a few feet, and then he comes to the car and we stop and go, and then eventually we just took off on the expressway. Just blatantly left him right there. And so the funny thing is, like, there wasn't an exit to turn around for like 5 or 6 miles after that.
Oh no.
So like he's calling us, and we're joking around, saying, "You got to find a new way home now, buddy. We're leaving you. You're done, right?" And yeah, man, he's laughing. He's both laughing hysterically and pissed at us at the same time. And so we finally turned around. And see, the problem was with that long drive, we had time to think, right?
Yeah.
Like, how can we make this rib better? So one of us, I don't want to take credit for it. I think it was me, but it could have been any of us. One of us had the right idea of getting, when we got off at the exit, we got his gear bag out of the trunk. And so then when we pull around to get to him, and remember, like, not only do we have to go several miles to turn around, but we have to go back and turn around again so we can be on the right side of the expressway to, go to him, right? So we finally get back to the rest stop where he's at, and we pull up to him, and he's laughing, but he thinks the joke's over. We just pull up, roll down the window, we toss his gear bag out the window at him and say, "Hey, you forgot something," and then drive off again and go back on the expressway. And so then it's another, and we're just another several minutes of drive to the next exit, turn around, drive to another exit, turn around, come back. And he's calling us again, and he's both pissed and laughing hysterically again. And so then we did this. We start driving, like, the parking lot's empty for the most part. We started doing donuts around him, like, not donuts because it wasn't snowy, but we're driving. It wasn't cold. We didn't do it to him in the winter, right? Yeah. But we're driving circles around him while we're throwing our trash out the window. So we're litter bugs, but we're throwing, like, whatever food on the way home, probably Wendy's or some sort of garbage bin, right? We're throwing our food containers out the windows at him, and it was Jeff Brooks' car, so Jeff Brooks had, like, probably $20 in change, like, nothing but pennies in his center console there. So we're throwing pennies at him.
Oh my God! And
we do the stop and go thing to him, and he's finally getting mad. He's like, "I'm not playing anymore. Stop funny anymore, guys. It's not funny anymore." Like, he's getting legitimately mad. And so we're finally like, all right, we're looking at the time, and we're like, we're just making this long drive even longer, right? Because we still had another 2.5 hours or whatever to go.
Oh yeah.
And so, like, we finally we do the start and stop thing all the way right near the on-ramp to the expressway, and we finally let him back in the car. And he's super pissed, right? Like, "It's not fucking funny." I apologize. Is it okay? I'm cursing on your podcast.
Yeah, no, it's fine. Podcast? It's fine. It's YouTube. We can do it.
Okay, cool. And fun fact about me, I'm not, like, I don't curse that much until, like, I'm in a wrestling locker room. It's like a funny thing. You get me in the wrestling locker room, and I can't total potty mouth, I guess, as my kids would say, right? But, like, at home, I have to try to keep it as clean as possible with the little ones. But so yeah, he gets in the car, and he's super pissed, and he's like, "It's not fucking funny, you guys." We're laughing and hysterics, right? And then girlfriend calls. Well, then now it's okay, because now he's like, "Shh, guys, be quiet. Now he's got the right idea. He's like, I'm going to tell her you guys left me, and she's going to come get me." So now the joke's funny again to him, because now he can be in on the joke.
Yeah.
And all of us wrestlers knew his girlfriend, because she would frequently come with us to shows. She just didn't that day because the car was full. And so, like, he's telling her, "Yeah, those effing guys left me stranded at a rest stop in the middle of nowhere. Like, I don't know how I'm going to get home." And she's like, "Oh my God, where are you? How do I get you?" And he's like, "I'm not even sure." Like, he's just really selling it to her. And she's, like, losing her mind. And she's like, "I'm going to call them." So she calls one of us, and we put her on speakerphone, and we're like, "No, F that guy. He's running his mouth. We left him there. Screw him. He's going to have to find himself. You're going to have to get him," right? And so she's losing his mind. Joe's in the back seat trying to hold in his laughter as he's snickering as quietly as he can. And, finally we let her in on the joke, right?
Yeah.
And so then he we have to stop for gas. So Joe thinks the joke's done, right? And like with wrestlers, a rib's never done while there's still the potential for humor. And so we stop for gas, and like everyone just it's like all of us in the car just kind of knew, right? We just knew we were going to keep ribbing him because Joe's running his mouth saying he's got to go to the bathroom or get something. I don't know. Joe's the reason Joe was frequently a target of ribbing was Joe was a trash talker. He loved to talk trash, and I'm not ragging on him. You know, God rest his soul. Like that was his personality. That's part of if you were friends with Joe, that was part of the reason why you were friends with him. Right? He was just one of those guys that loved to talk trash, and so because of that, it made him the target of ribs. So like that's a little lesson to. I mean. Business has changed. There's not as much ribbing anymore, but like that's if you're a trash talker, especially as a rookie, like you're gonna get targeted for ribs a lot.
Yeah.
And so he's still talking trash, and as he's getting out of the car, and as he's getting out of the car, he's closing the door, and I can read his facial expression because he's talking trash, but then he starts to quiet down as he's looking. And he realizes no one else got out of the car. And like, I'm totally selling it. Like I'm half awake, like I'm exhausted, right? So I'm just leaned back, looking super comfortable. And like, as he's closing the door, you see him from closing it to regular speed to almost that half speed as his brain's starting to catch up to the situation. And the moment that car door shuts completely, I go from that half awake leaning back position to lunging forward, smacking my hand on the lock to lock the and then off and leave him at the gas station. But there was another gas station across the street, right? So we just drove off across the street to the other gas station, and so it was like, oh, guys, but at least we're on the street, right? And he's like, oh, you effers. One of us again had the bright idea. Again, I think it was me, but I don't want to take all the credit for all the gloriousness. It could have been anybody, but it's my story, so I'll say it was me. One of us had the bright idea where we get out of the car, all of us get out of the car and start walking towards the gas station. And so Joe thinks, okay, the rib's done. And he starts walking across the street, at a casual pace. And it's like 2 or 3 in the morning. The streets are dead. And he gets almost across the street as we then turn around and book back into the car, get in the car, lock the doors, and drive off. And so now like it sounds it's less funny now that knowing Joe unfortunately died several years later, but if Joe were here, he would be laughing in hysterics going, you effer, man, you jerks, I can't believe you guys did that to me. Like he would do as much as the rest of us. But so we drove down the street. There wasn't another gas station open for like I don't know, probably half a mile to a mile. And so we go down the street, we pump gas, and we're taking our time inside. And Joe's calling us saying, "You effers, it's not funny anymore," because it keeps going from funny to him to not funny anymore. And he's like, "It's not funny anymore." And we're like, "Joe, like we're down the street, just walk down to the other gas station." And then we eventually. We all kind of agreed we had to wrap this up and actually get home. And so we drove down the street, and then we saw Joe walking, so we did a U-ey, but we drove past him, and one of us, I think it was me, it's been so, this legitimately happened somewhere between 2005 and 2007. So I don't remember exactly who it was, but I think it was. Again, I'm telling the story, so I'll take credit, but one of us, probably me, I stuck my butt out the window to moon him as we're driving past, and whoever was driving started honking. And because we're all in our early 20s, right? So we're a bunch of idiots goofing off, right? And then we have to turn around again to come back to him, and he's like, no, and we're like, okay, Joe, come on. And he's like, no, I'm not getting in the car, man. I'm not getting in the car. You guys, you're just gonna drive off on me again. We're like, no, seriously, Joe. It's like 3 or whatever time it is, right? We're like, it's time. The rib needs to end. We need to go, right? And so we're like, Joe, we're gonna keep the car moving. Just take a running start and jump into the car, like lunge into the car. God. It'll be cool, right? And he's like, no. And Joe was kind of husky, right? Like he was not real fat, just kind of a husky body type, right? He worked out and all that, but just a little on the husky side. So he finally agrees to it. So he gets like a running start as the car's moving. He jumps into the car, and as soon as he jumps in, and he's completely in, the person driving like floors it and hits the gas. And poor Joe, the car door slammed shut onto his leg.
Oh,
so like he wasn't injured, but like he sold it pretty well for the rest of the day and a few days, claiming his leg was all messed up, but he was fine overall. But yeah, that's that. As far as things in the wrestling business that like fans would not be aware of, that's one of my. It's a bittersweet memory because. My entire life, but it's bittersweet because when I think of it, I'm reminded that Joe, unfortunately, he was actually murdered a few years ago. It was in the news where purchase, and they went and they did it in a Walmart parking lot. This is super bizarre. They met someone at a Walmart parking lot, and the person shot him and his friend. And their bodies weren't discovered for a day or two. Like how I don't understand how that happened. So yeah, bittersweet story, bittersweet memory for me. Like I never laughed so hard in my life, but when I think of it, like I my heart aches for Joe and for his young daughter who is growing up without a father. But it's still one of the outside of the unfortunate end to that story, it's one of the funniest moments in my entire life.
Yeah, well, he sounded like an awesome guy, and it sounds like you guys had a lot of fun on the road.
Yeah, we had a blast back in the day with that's something like wrestlers, like we love performing in the ring, but there's that camaraderie, with the boys, right? Like some of the relationships you build with other wrestlers, and then when guys like eventually move on and they leave the business for whatever reason, like it can be unfortunate when you lose contact with some of those guys, but because Joe eventually quit a few years after that, but poor guy, we ripped him too.
Cool.
I promise you that's the longest story I tell. I won't tell any other super long form stories like that. But yeah, that's the first one that comes to mind when you asked about best memories.
No, it's good. I mean, that was an awesome story. It really gives a fun insight into how it is to kind of travel with your friends as a wrestler. But now I wanted to talk to you about getting to like the big times to WWE. How did that even go about it, and what were you thinking the whole time?
Well, I guess let me back up a little bit before we get to that. Like I'll do a quick summary of my career before that, because like I said, I trained at Dan Severn's I started training at Dan Severn's in 2001. I had my first professional match at Monty Brown's high school. It was his high school in 2002. April 2002 was my first match. And then in 2003, I stopped training at Dan Severn's school, and I started training under Truth Martini in his House of Truth school. I was one of his earliest students. He worked with a few before me. Like he worked with Zach Gowen and Buddy Hanlon and Alex Shelley, and I think he might have worked with Chris. I don't remember, but I mean, he helped with Alex Shelley and some others, and Zach, of course, and then some of his other students like Juice Robinson, who's like huge in over in Japan. Like he's had fantastic success. He over there with Martin a few years after me, and then then, fast forward a few years of working as often as I could on the local Michigan and Midwest Indies, doing the starving artist thing, like wrestling every chance I could for little or no pay. And carpooling with guys when possible, and driving on my own when it wasn't possible, and just trying to every chance I could to wrestle. I wasn't worried about the pay as much as I wouldn't even call it exposure. I wanted the experience, and like I had such tunnel vision on success in pro wrestling. And then fast forward a little bit, in 2008, a friend of mine had gone down to Florida let me back up before that. I had gone to OVW in 2007, or I think it was, and was trying to get my foot in the door at OVW, and I was going to move down there, but I wanted to go down there and talk to the trainers first and get their advice on everything, and kind of like organized my life to where I could move down there. I didn't want to be one of those people that just dropped everything and moved and hope it turned out right. So I was trying to organize my life to be able to do that. And at OVW, I went with Chris Corvus and Jeff Brooks and myself. And I'm brain farting, forgetting his name, the head trainer there. I feel like a goof. It'll come to me in a minute. But he told us to wrestle. He looked at us. He said, "Who's got the most experience?" And it was me. He said, "Okay, of those two, which one do you work the best with?" And it was awkward, but I picked Chris because at the time, Chris and I did gel better than Jeff and I, which shifted in later years. And so he said, "Okay, you two, I want you to go out there and have the longest match you can." And we're like, "How long?" He's like, "As long as you can. Go an hour. I don't care. As long as you can." And so we're like, "Okay." So like 5 minutes in the match, Chris planted his foot and broke his leg.
Oh,
like. It was like the most bizarre injury ever. Like literally nothing happened out of the ordinary. He just planted his foot funny, and his leg broke, his lower leg, and he didn't want to quit because we're in OVW, right? And we're like, we're it's WWE territory at that time, right? So neither of us want to quit, and so and we're just chain wrestling, right? We're not even doing anything crazy. It's like headlock takeover, stuff like that. Maybe, shoulder tackle, back to the headlock, that sort of thing, right? And so, like, I put him in a chin lock, and because I think he's hurt. I said, "You all right?" He goes, "I think I broke my leg." Ooh. And like, I don't believe him, right? I think he's exaggerating, right? Mm-hmm. And so I keep going. So Chris keeps going, and then we get back. We keep working, and Chris is limping really bad, and the referee's like, "Are you okay?" Chris goes, "I think I broke my leg." I'm like, "Are you serious?" He goes, "Yeah, I think I broke my leg." And it just becomes like this,
wow.
Like he's probably asked like half a dozen times before the referee's like, "Dude, just stop." Yeah. And like, and in hindsight, both of us immediately were so mad that like, I just didn't pin him or something, right? But it was just like the referee's like, just stop, bro. If you're hurt, stop. Seriously, stop. And so we just stopped, and we're like, "He's hurt." And sure enough, like Chris broke his leg. It was we ragged on him for years after that. We're like, you need more calcium in your diet, man. Like it was bizarre. Like literally planted his foot on a step, and his leg broke. And then fast forward past that in 2008, because WWE cut ties with OVW. Mm-hmm. And moved to Florida and launched FCW, Florida Championship Wrestling. One of my friends had moved down to FCW and was telling me all about it. So myself and my wife, we went to Florida for a few days to look into it, and decided like, okay, that's what we're going to do. We're going to go to Florida. And my wife and I, we moved to Florida in January 2009, right at the height of like, because with the crash, the recession start in like mid 2008 or whatever, right? So like I'm leaving a good job. I worked at a school at the time. I made decent money and had like fantastic insurance, and I was leaving a good job to go to Florida with no job, nothing lined up, and just chasing the dream. And eventually I did find a job, and so did my wife. And I trained at Florida Championship Wrestling for a few months. I was not under contract. I want to stress that. I was not under contract. There's been some people who will kind of mislead and claim they were possibly under contract, or at least that's a misconception from some. So like, I was never under contract with FCW, nor have I ever claimed to have been under contract with FCW. And so I trained there a little bit. TJ Perkins, TJP, he was there as well. And so, like, if you remember in the Cruiserweight Classic, like, he talks about being homeless and all that stuff. Like, that was, I was there during that time. I didn't, and I actually didn't realize he was homeless. I would have helped him out, right? And I'm sure he was just too proud to like say anything, but we were friends. Like his girlfriend at the time stayed with us for a week. We had a spare room, and she stayed with us. And he lived in a car, and we didn't know. Like I forget what they told us, but they just made up some other story. Yeah. And so she stayed with us for a week. He lived out of his car for however long, and then like they moved on. They moved. I think the claim was that they're moving back to California. I'm not sure. I kind of lost contact with them because they changed their numbers. They gave me their new phone number, but I didn't save it on my phone, and I accidentally deleted the text message. So I lost contact with TJ and his girlfriend. Lauren was her name. I lost contact with them for years. And I wasn't a Twitter guy, so apparently I could have just hopped on Twitter and found him because he wasn't on Facebook. He was on Twitter, but whatever. So I was at FCW, and then in 2000. So I moved down there in 2009, January of 2009, trained there for a bit. And then in 2012, I participated in a WWE tryout at that facility. Yeah. And like, I'm brain dead today. What's I can't think of his name. The guy you just referenced that was at Concrete Jungle. With the Indiana Jones gimmick.
Yeah, Stone Rockwell.
Stone Rockwell, yeah. He was at that tryout as well. And so was Buddy Murphy. Buddy Murphy was at that tryout. Buddy Murphy got signed at that tryout. Cool. And this was back when Bill DeMott was the head trainer. So, like, the tryout was like drills. Like, they were just trying to grind us into dust. But like I had like a 3 months I think I had close to 3 months of a heads up on when my tryout was. And I had friends that were under contract, and they're like, dude, you have to get your ring conditioning up. And I already had good ring conditioning. They're like, it doesn't matter. It needs to be better. He said, Bill DeMott is going to try to like grind you into dust. And that's basically what they did. And from what I understand, it hasn't changed a whole lot since, but like it was a 3 or 4 day tryout, and it was grind us into dust. And then they let us wrestle a little bit on the third day. So like the first 2 days was just drills. And like, but wrestling related. So like tackle, drop down, hip toss, like hit the ropes, like a bunch of rope running drills and grape squishers in the corner and just, and like they would try to get us as winded as possible and then make sure our footwork remained good. And that was what they were focusing on, was how good was our footwork. And I remember, like, you know, I watched a lot of like motivational videos and speeches on YouTube to try to get the right mindset. And I read some books on your mindset, because I'm very big on trying to keep the right mindset. I really believe that a lot of people, what's that?
I said, of course. Yeah.
Yeah. Like that psychology, like you can be the best in the world physically, but if you don't have the right mindset mentally, like you will lose to somebody else who does have the better mindset. Maybe not every time, but sometimes. And so like, I was really tried to be super focused. And like, I remember there were times where guys like they had like a long line to one of the rings, and we're just doing this drill. And there's approximately 70 of us doing the tryout, including men and women. And like I remember there were times where like guys were kind of trying to stay back towards the end of the line. Like they already did the drill once and they had us keep doing the drill, and guys didn't want to do the drill again. I'm like, well, do you mind if I cut you then? They're like, yeah, sure. Like, and I didn't understand that. Like people are scared. I'm like, you're here. Like, I'm going to get as much FaceTime as I can. Right. Yeah. Like, and so like I would do the drill over and over again. And I tried to be like, friends that also told me like, you have to be aggressive. Right. So when you're wrestling, you need to be as aggressive as possible. So one of the things I did to prep for the tryout was I watched a lot of Chris Benoit. A lot of Benoit matches, because Benoit was the most aggressive wrestler I could think of, and not particularly large, and not a huge person either, right? You know, I'm south of 6 foot, and so like I was trying to be as aggressive as possible in those drills and trying to every opportunity get back in the ring whenever I could for a drill. And like I'd done so much conditioning work prior to that. Like I knew my wind was the best of my life. And so like there were times where guys weren't prepared, like ring conditioning guys just were not prepared at all for some of those drills. And I'm not saying like I was cruising through them. I absolutely was not. Like they were kicking my butt too. But like I went into it with the mentality that I was going to like absolutely, I don't want to say do my best, like dominate. Like I had the killer mentality. Like I was like, nobody's going to outdo me in these drills. Like my heart's going to explode before I look bad in this ring. And whereas other guys, you can read on their faces, they're just trying to survive the drill. And like, I'm like, no, absolutely not. Like my mindset was like, I'm a small guy. Like I cannot have lackluster conditioning, right? Like if there's any sort of sliding scale, I'm at the high expectations, right? So like I would try to kill it with the conditioning drills and try to get every opportunity I could to be in people's faces. And they were recording the tryout. They told us they were recording it so that they would send it up to Stamford, Connecticut. And so I would do like, and they said they were big on coachability and people being positive, right? They wanted good team players. So I would do like little things too. Like I would make sure that I was standing in view of the camera. So even if I wasn't in the ring doing a drill, I would stand to where the camera could see me, and I would be pretty over the top with my body language, cheering guys on. Yeah. Because I wanted as much camera time as I could. Any little leg up I could get. So if someone, up in Connecticut is reviewing the footage, not only do they see me being aggressive in the drills and having really good ring conditioning in the drills, but they're seeing my face and being trying to do everything I could, and as a matter of fact, and then the fourth, I will say by the end of it all, when we're leaving on the last day, well, I'm forgetting everybody's names today. What's wrong with me? Not enough sleep. I'm getting up too early every day. Steve Kern, Steve Kern and I were on a first name basis because he was doing the night class that I was a part of, and he was head of FCW at the time. And of course there were all the other coaches, and William Regal was there, and a few others. And so like as I'm leaving, like he shakes my hand and he gives me the generic, hey, you did good, kid, keep plugging away. But then he stopped and he looked at me. And Steve was never the type of person to like blow smoke up your butt. Like he was always very straight with you. Other than like he might give you a generic, hey, you did good, kid, right? Yeah. Like he might give you one of those generic things, but he's not going to stand there and blow smoke up your butt, right? And so he's like, hey, you did good, kid, keep plugging away. And then he stops, he looks at me and he goes, I'm going to shoot straight with you right now, James. He said, every time we would get together to discuss talent, every time your name was brought up, every time it was always stated that kid came here to win. And although I did not get signed like that that statement like made me feel like I walked away feeling like $1 million at least, to at least some validation to how hard I worked.
Wow.
And to rewind real quick to the last thing, because the first 3 days was all wrestling, and day 4 was promos.
Wow.
And I was trying to come up with something creative to do for a promo, and they said, you can talk about anything. And I took the opening credits sequence to Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
Yeah.
And so that rap that Will Smith does, I took it and I didn't do a rap because I absolutely cannot rap or sing.
Well, neither could John Cena.
Yeah, right. Well, I took it and did it as I guess you could say spoken word, which is what they say when you take a song and instead of singing it, you just speak the song.
Yeah.
So I turned it into like a spoken word or an emotional monologue, and to make time, because they said it had to be 1 minute exactly. They said don't go over, go over 2 or 3 seconds, go under a second or two, but absolutely don't go over at all. And so when I practiced it, I couldn't get it under a minute without rushing. So I cut the first few lines, the first paragraph, I guess, if you will, of the rap, and jumped in like the second, and I did it as an emotional monologue with like trying to do kind of a range of emotion, because if you after we're done with the podcast, like listen to the Will Smith, listen to him doing Fresh Prince of Bel-Air song, like there's some emotion to it that you could add to it and take it through a range of emotions like anger and frustration and sadness. And so I did that, and I got a standing ovation from all the boys.
Wow.
Like there's 70 wrestlers, and everybody just stands up and they're clapping. And what's funny is I really wanted to see Dusty Rhodes' facial expression. Like that was my goal. I'm like, after I finish the promo, I have to look at Dusty and I have to see what his reaction is, because I know Dusty is the man I need to impress with the promo.
Of course, yeah.
And unfortunately, when I looked over towards Dusty, the first person I saw was actually Bill DeMott. And Bill DeMott is like, he's like poker face the whole tryout. Like he is drill sergeant poker face the entire 4 days. Like you don't know if he loves you, if he hates you, if he's gonna like if he's gonna like destroy you. Like you have no idea where you stand with Bill that whole tryout. And I look over, Bill doesn't have a poker face anymore. He is like smiling, nodding his head in approval, basically going like, not bad, kid, not bad at all. Like that very surprised, impressed look. And I totally forgot to look at Dusty because I'm like, oh my God, Bill DeMott's impressed. So that was my promo. And I'll tell you real quick that Buddy Murphy, he had an epic promo. His promo was great too, and I'm sure that contributed to him being signed. I didn't. They split us up during the ring work stuff, so I didn't work with Buddy in the ring at all.
Yeah.
But I interacted with him here and there, possibly like there's 70 people. I don't remember. But he cut the promo, and his promo was like really drew you in. Like he's sitting on the floor with like a pad paper and just brooding and rocking back and forth and brooding and building to this emotional crescendo. And I don't even remember the concept of the promo. I don't remember what he said in the promo, but I just remember that concept of him angry and brooding and writing whatever on this notepad and ripping the pages out and just building that emotion and that rage.
Wow.
And it just really drew you in. It was a fantastic promo. And so, he wound up being signed. They signed him that day because they said they were going to sign at least one person that day. And then, there may be more, right? And, I didn't hear anything back after that, which was unfortunate. And then because I'm an overachiever, after the tryout was over, like not only was I training super hard leading up to the tryout and just overworking my body, but the tryout itself is 3 days of nonstop drills. And the fourth day was promo day. Day 5, my tryout's all done, but I'm super motivated because I was hopeful I was going to get called back. I go to the gym, I train legs, and tore my glute.
Ooh.
And I didn't even know you could tear your ass muscle, but I tore my glute. And I was unable to train lower body for 6 months.
Oh.
Like could not train lower body at all for 6 months. So like all the progress, not even cardio, like speed walking. If I walked too fast, my ass would hurt.
Ow.
So whatever I had accomplished physically, prepping for that tryout, like all down the drain over the course of 6 months. You know, I could do upper body, of course, but you know, I try to have a balanced physique. So, and of course you can't do much with cardio. So that was my long-winded story on the WWE trial. That was 2012. And I'm sorry, you had actually asked me about getting booked for WWE a few years later, right?
Oh yeah. No, I was
Like the extra
interested. I didn't know about that.
So like quick side note, so that's 2012. My son Jacob was born in December of 2013. We were under a lot of pressure to move back home. It was my mom's first grandchild.
Yeah.
And we were under a lot of pressure to move back home, and WWE was not following up with me at all. And I was really having trouble getting noticed down there. Mm-hmm. There seemed to be like a bottleneck effect where like, so in Florida, like so many wrestlers that are in Florida, they're trying to move up to WWE, right? Mm-hmm. And not this, that's not true up here, but it's different in terms of like up here in other areas. You get a lot of guys that they're not trying to move up yet. They're trying to work, you know, apply their craft and get experience and work the indies. And they're maybe they're not ready yet for trying to knock on WWE's door, or they convince themselves they're not ready yet. Mm-hmm. Whereas, so there's it's a little bit easier to stand out in the crowd up in the Midwest. And this isn't ragging on anybody in Midwest. I'm simply saying there's less guys in the Midwest that will actively reach out to WWE. Yeah. Whereas down in Florida, like a lot of people are trying to reach out to WWE. So there's a bottleneck effect. So there's a lot of guys in the Midwest that I think are fantastic, who I think would do very well if they reached out to WWE and were a little bit more proactive with trying to get to knock on WWE's door. Mm-hmm. But for whatever reason, they don't. And so there's less up, you know, the squeaky wheel gets the oil. And if you're not squeaking, no one pays attention to you. So mm-hmm. That was part of in my mind, I'm like, okay, well, I was seeing friends get opportunity in Michigan that I wasn't able to get. I mean, I'd gotten the tryout, but hadn't heard anything back, and I wasn't getting any extra bookings. So in summer 2014, we moved home. I did a tryout, or excuse me, you remember they did Tough Enough, right? Yeah. They brought back Tough Enough in 2015. So I submitted a video for that. So I had long hair back then.
Yeah, I saw that.
And if you search my name online, okay. Yep. So for those who are not familiar, a pistol squat is where you do it. It's a single leg squat all the way to the floor with one leg perfectly straight. And so I did this promo, and like, you know, I spent like 20 minutes like getting a muscle pump first and spraying myself with baby oil and trying to look the part, right? So like I had like the biggest muscle pump I could go for, and I start the video at the bottom of a pistol squat, and I work my way up to standing, and then work my way back down to the bottom pistol squat while cut the promo. What's funny is we filmed several takes. My wife recorded it, went home, and then found out that she kept cutting off. All the good takes, she'd either cut off the end too soon or cut off the beginning too soon. Didn't start recording soon enough as I started talking. So like I'd done like probably 24 takes of pistol squats, and none of them were any good because we didn't get the camera right. And then I had to go back to the gym later that day, do a whole bunch of push-ups and pull-ups and curls and stuff, and ab exercises to try to get the biggest pump possible and spray myself down all over again. And then my leg was sore from all the pistol squats earlier. And then I did more takes of the pistol squats. So that was that video got me a Skype interview with a USA Network producer. I felt like the interview went really well. At least I felt good about it, but I didn't hear anything back. So I don't know how close I came, if I came close at all. And then ultimately, you know, they did the show, and I clearly was not on it.
Yeah.
So that was 2015, and then in 2016 they were launching the cruiserweight division, right, with the Cruiserweight Classic.
Yeah.
And despite the fact that I had emailed WWE, I'd reached out to them a few times in the years leading up to that, I hadn't really heard back. Or no, I'm sorry, I was not emailing. I was using their website. There's a difference. So they have a special website for guys like me to hack, which is now the Performance Center website. So I was using that website, and I never heard back. And I was probably not proactive enough. I probably did not reach out often enough, right? You got to put yourself out there, and you can't just, oh, they didn't say anything to me, so I guess it's a no, right? You have to stay consistent. And so that was where I was failing in those years. And so eventually I got the email that I was booked as an extra. And that was in 2016. I was just using a backstage segment where like I was a medical person checking on one of the divas. And then I didn't, and again, still after that, I was not proactive enough with reaching out to them frequently enough and in advance enough. And then finally I figured it out, like, no, I need to like reach out to them at every opportunity. And so I started doing that. And now they bring me in frequently, or at least they did prior to the pandemic. So I had that. They brought me in for a tag team match with Kenta and Akira Tozawa. That was my first match on WWE TV, and like I did the this guy, my gimmick did the this guy thing, and not only did the audience pop a little bit, like it wasn't a real loud pop. Like if you watch it, you have to put headphones in to hear it, right? But there's a decent. It in the moment, to me, it sounded like a loud pop. So the crowd popped, and then they started chanting, "That guy, clap, clap, that guy, clap, clap," or "This guy, clap, clap," because that's what I'd yell. And so much so that actually was more audible on the video, and Kenta was forced to kind of acknowledge it. And I was actually very nervous because I thought, oh no, like I'm in deep crap, like because it's not my job to get over. It's my job to get them over and make them look good, right? And I just got over, so I was like, "Oh my God, I'm in so much trouble." But thankfully, I didn't get in trouble. So then I felt like $1 million after that. And then they just started bringing me in like every few months. I did a good job. They brought me. And I was a little soft when they brought me in for that opportunity. Like it was in February, right? So it was right after the holidays. I was kind of not expecting it. And so I was a little soft in the midsection. And then so like after that, I went on like a super strict keto diet, and I got like shredded. I lost a little muscle in the process. And I was back in there for a segment with TJ Perkins, TJP. And it was funny. Him and we got to catch up, and we didn't have the opportunity to have many. We never had a one-on-one match down in Florida, and that was something we always wanted to have. Like we had matches like at training, but we never had one-on-one matches on shows. We worked together in tags a few times, and so it was something we had wanted to have that opportunity. So it was just funny. All of these years later, we get to have a match on WWE TV. But if you watch the segment, like it's like I sucker punch him before the bell rings, and then he just takes out my knee and puts me in the leg bar, and I sold it like everything depended on it. I sold it like he was breaking my leg in half. I totally oversold it. I mean, maybe to TJ I sold it perfectly, right? But like I tried to sell it like crazy. Like I was biting my finger to sell the pain. And like they loved it. I talked to like Michael Cole after, who totally put me over, and a few others, and they put me over. And so it was great. And then I was brought back in a few more times after that, obviously. But I'll quit dominating. Let me let you ask some questions. I'm talking too much here.
No, it's fine. I have a couple more. Big one is do you have any well, before I get to that, because that's more of like a wrap up question. Where are you now, and where do you see yourself? Like, do you have an end goal that you want to meet in your professional wrestling career? Like a place you want to go, an achievement you want to make?
Yeah. So like, for me, the goal is, I don't want to say the generic, I want to make it, right? Because that's the generic thing that people say, I want to make it in the business. Well, what does that mean? That can mean something very different to so many people, right? And like a decade ago, I would have loved to have gone to Japan and worked in Japan, but having a family now, that's not conducive. And so like for me, just being signed with a national company where they're paying me more than my day job.
Yeah, that would be
where
awesome.
They're paying me enough to support my family. So, take your pick, whichever national organization that may be. That because at this point, like I'm on the wrong side of 30, right? I've been wrestling for a long time, and like it's kind of like what's the expression? Shit or get off the pot. Like I need to.
Yeah.
I need to move up or move on. And I'm not saying that in like a woe is me. Oh, I didn't make it. I need to just quit. Like it's not that at all. It's just literally like, hey, like I'm not getting any younger, and it's time spent away from my family. And again, I have 4 children. It's very hard for my wife to manage my kids alone, right? So like, because they're triplet toddlers and a super hyper 7-year-old with autism. Like it's not easy. So like time away from that's why I don't wrestle as much anymore. And so like there's guys that are they're chugging away and they're going every weekend, and some guys like they don't. Some guys look at me as like a part timer at this point who barely wrestles, but like I did put in those miles, right? I did do the drives for a long time, and I would happily continue to do so if it would not be an imbalance for my family life, right? I have to have a work, wrestling, family life balance. So I don't travel as much because I would find my wife, she'd probably divorce me, right? Like it just wouldn't work, and rightfully so. Like it's not fair to the family for me to be gone every weekend and traveling excessively. So I stick to mostly local bookings, and I'm not wrestling nearly as often as I'd like to, but it's as often as I can to stay fit for the ring and stay ready for any potential opportunities that may come my way. So obviously, what's funny is like 2020, like I was at the beginning of 2020, I'm like, okay, like I really, in my mind, like I was starting to question. I'm like, is this my last year? Is this the do or die time? Right? Like,
yeah.
And then 2020 shut everything down. So like now it's, now it's like, okay, well, let's try this again. So I'm not saying that this is the end for me, but it's I need to move up or move on for the sake of my family. So I'm hopeful to go somewhere, and I'm even willing, like if WWE, for example, I'm very much willing to work for them as a referee if like if I'm told my age is against me too much at this point, like I would happily pursue a position as a referee. But otherwise, that's kind of where I'm at right now.
Cool. So. Awesome. Well, I want to say thank you so much for doing this. It is really awesome talking to you and getting a really cool look inside like your career. My last question is: do you have any advice for anybody pursuing pro wrestling? Like something you think they should have in their arsenal of knowledge?
Yes. So first and foremost, like you got to look the part, right? Like a lot of guys, they make up excuses for looking mediocre physically in the ring. and they'll point at people who are the exception, right? They'll point at Kevin Owens, who's fantastic, right? They'll point at Kevin Owens and they'll say, I don't need to go to the gym because Kevin Owens is successful. Or they'll point at someone else who's not your cliche pro wrestler build, right? Like, I'm not saying everybody needs to look like the Ultimate Warrior. Like, Lord knows I don't look like the Ultimate Warrior. But for my frame, I have a fairly balanced build. Like, I look TV ready. I look good in a pair of trunks most of the time, and I work very, very hard for that. And so I think a lot of guys, they don't want to put in the work, right? And like, I have a family now, like, and my family life is a struggle. I'm not saying that in a negative way. Like, I love my family, but it's not easy raising four kids with 3 toddlers and a 7-year-old with autism. So like, I get up every day at 4:15 in the morning and I do my workout before I go to work. I do that on the weekends. I did that today. I actually forgot to set my alarm and I still woke up in time to do my workout. So the first thing I would tell guys is get your diet and nutrition right and go to the gym. And if you don't know what you're doing, there's plenty of free ways. It's 2021. You have this magical device in your hands called a phone, a smartphone, where you can literally find just about anything you want to for free, right? Yeah. And if for a small investment, there are places like AthleanX and other things online where you can, for a small investment, you can invest in your body to get the knowledge, get the training programming so that you can build a good physique, or, afford it. Like I'm not working as a trainer anymore, so you can't hire me. But like, I mean, if you hear this podcast and you have a question, send me a message on Facebook. Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to spend an hour with you, but like, I'll answer a question or two. And if you don't respond to the first question, send a follow-up. I'm not always the best at responding, right? Yeah. I'd say work on that physique, get your mindset right. Mindset is everything. Like, read some books that are on mindset for athletes and just other people, to be like the very successful people read books on mindset, or even like there's motivational YouTube videos and I'm not talking the rah you're the best videos. I'm talking about motivational videos where they're giving you insight into how to keep that positive mindset and keep I don't even want to say necessarily a positive mindset, but a productive mindset, right? So those would be like the two biggest things: is get your body right, get your mindset right, and then and obviously, if you're a young guy in the business, like put in your time, get every opportunity you can to wrestle a match. If guys give you feedback, listen to them, right? You don't have to do everything every person tells you, but like legitimately listen. Like, some guys will ask a vet for feedback, and all they want is the vet to tell them how great they were. Like, no, like, listen to constructive criticism, and if take what you think works and apply it. And if something doesn't work, like, don't argue with them. Just say, okay, thank you. You can ask questions, right, to a veteran, but don't argue, right? Say, okay, thank you, I appreciate that. And then, and say, ask a question in a way where you're trying to understand it better, but don't argue with them. And yeah, so that'd be some stuff.
Awesome.
For another hour, but yeah.
Cool. Well, like I said, thank you so much for doing this. It was really nice talking to you. Do you want to kind of plug your social media in case anyone wants to kind of get in contact with you or anything?
Sure. Yeah. So like, I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. I'm not as active on Instagram lately. I kind of go like in spurts where I'm super active and then I'm barely active. So I'm on Instagram. I'm on Facebook. I'm more active on Facebook. And so, like, send me a friend request. I don't always accept them if I see that I have like no mutual friends. So, you might have to shoot me a message and say, hey, heard me on the podcast, right? So, yeah. But otherwise, yeah. So check me out on social media. Check me out on events, such as once we get started in the ring again. So hopefully that's soon. And buy a t-shirt. Yeah, I got t-shirts. Buy a t-shirt. Reach out to me. I'll sell you a t-shirt. I'm kidding, but otherwise, come say hi. If you hear the podcast, come say hi to me at a show or whatever, right? Yeah.
Cool. Well, Thank you for being here. If you want to see more of this WrestleCast, I also hope you check out our Omega Michigan Wrestling content that we'll be posting on the channel. We have on Instagram Omega Michigan Wrestling, YouTube, which is still Omega Michigan Wrestling, and then I have a personal Facebook, which I post updates and stuff like that. So everybody who's watching, make sure you subscribe, like, and hit the notification bell to see more of these. Thank you so much, James, and I really hope I can see you in a pro wrestling ring soon.
Yeah.
And see you kicking some butt. And everybody, have a great day. Stay safe. Wash your hands. Wear a mask. And stay healthy. So.
Yeah, thank you.
Anyways, that's it for this WrestleCast episode 5. Everybody have a great day. This has been Jay Leo with Omega Michigan Wrestling's WrestleCast.